You do it every day. You barely think about it. You pump a little liquid into your hands, rub for 20 seconds, rinse, and move on. But in those 20 seconds, something extraordinary is happening. Billions of living organisms, each one a marvel of biological engineering, are being swept off your skin, and many of them destroyed. Not by poison, not by heat, but by something as simple as soap. So, how does it actually work? First, let's appreciate what we're up against. Bacteria are incredibly tough. They've survived for 3.5 billion years on this planet, through ice ages, mass extinctions, and environments that would kill a human in minutes. Some species thrive in boiling water. Others live in pure acid. They are, by almost any measure, the most successful life form that has ever existed on Earth. And yet, soap stops them. A substance humans have been making for at least 4,500 years, originally from ash and animal fat, is one of the most effective tools we have for getting these ancient survivors off our hands. But not necessarily in the way you might think. Most people assume that soap works by killing bacteria outright. But here's the surprising part. Soap's first and most powerful line of defense isn't about poisoning microbes. It's about physics. Loosening and rinsing the bacteria away. When you lather up and rub your hands together, the soap is doing something deceptively simple. It's acting as a lubricant and a lifting agent. Bacteria don't float freely on your skin. They cling to it, embedded in oils, dirt, and grime that accumulate throughout the day. Soap molecules are extraordinarily good at getting underneath all of that, loosening the grip that bacteria and grime have on your skin surface. The friction of rubbing, which is why 20 seconds matters, not 2, mechanically dislodges them. And then water does the rest, carrying everything away down the drain. You're not just killing pathogens, you're physically evicting them. This is why proper rinsing is as important as the lathering itself. A quick rub and a splash of water isn't enough. You need to actually wash the loosened bacteria off your hands completely. They need to go somewhere, and that somewhere is the sink. But soap doesn't stop there. For bacteria that remain in contact with it long enough, something more destructive happens. And to understand it, we need to look at what a bacterium actually is. Bacteria, like all living cells, are wrapped in a membrane. Think of it as the cell's skin, the barrier between everything the bacterium is and everything it isn't. At their core, these membranes are built from molecules called phospholipids. These molecules have a peculiar structure. One end of the molecule loves water, it's hydrophilic. The other end hates water and is instead attracted to fats and oils. It's hydrophobic. Because of this split personality, these molecules naturally arrange themselves into a double layer, with the water-loving ends facing outward into the watery environment and the fat-loving ends tucked safely inside. This is the cell membrane, a beautifully self-assembling structure that requires no glue, no scaffold, just chemistry. This membrane does everything. It controls what enters and leaves the cell. It houses the proteins that generate energy. It maintains the internal environment that keeps the bacterium alive. Without an intact membrane, a bacterium doesn't get sick. It doesn't slow down. It simply ceases to function immediately and completely. Now, enter soap. Soap molecules, called surfactants, have the exact same split personality as the molecules that make up the cell membrane. One end is hydrophilic, the other is hydrophobic. When soap contacts the bacterial membrane, the hydrophobic tails of the soap molecules are strongly attracted to the hydrophobic core of that membrane. They push in, wedge between the membrane molecules, and begin to disrupt the careful structure that holds everything together. It's a bit like pulling threads from a woven fabric. Once enough threads are disturbed, the whole structure begins to unravel. As more soap molecules insert themselves, the membrane loses integrity. The cell leaks, its chemistry falls apart, and it can no longer function as a living organism. And then, water rinses everything away. This same chemistry is also why soap is so effective against viruses. Many of the most dangerous viruses, including those that cause flu, COVID-19, HIV, and Ebola, are what's known as enveloped viruses. They're wrapped in a lipid membrane, stolen from the last host cell they infected. Soap destroys that envelope at least as easily as it can disrupt a bacterial membrane. The virus literally falls apart in your hands. Here's what makes all of this remarkable. Soap doesn't need to identify the pathogen. It doesn't trigger an immune response or target one specific enemy. It exploits a fundamental weakness shared by an enormous range of dangerous microorganisms, especially those wrapped in fragile lipid membranes. It's a universal vulnerability, and soap has been exploiting it for millennia, long before we even knew bacteria existed. In 1847, a doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis proved that hand washing saved lives and was professionally destroyed for suggesting it. He had no idea why it worked. The science came much later, but that's a story for another day. What you do know now is what's actually happening every time you stand at a sink. A 4,500-year-old technology working through physics and chemistry simultaneously, evicting and dismantling some of the oldest and most dangerous life forms on Earth in 20 seconds before breakfast. This is the invisible science of everyday life.